This Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, and now Erika Kirk herself situation, it is spiraling out of control. And it is very much threatening to cause a forever divide in the Republican Party. Because just a quick recap for those of you that are joining us on chapter 73 of this whole situation, Candace Owens has been insisting that there is more to the story of Charlie Kirk's assassination than what we've been told. And over time, she's kind of cycled through pretty much everyone either accusing them or kind of alluding or going something doesn't smell right involved in Charlie Kirk's death, right? And she has a particular fixation on the French as well as Egyptian planes following Erika Kirk for years. But most recently, she's taken aim at Charlie's own organization, Turning Point USA, saying that she thinks that Charlie was betrayed by those close to him. And we've talked about this fairly extensively. Some people just kind of amused by the drama, others maybe realizing how important this is as far as the Republican Party moving forward. Because Candace Owens isn't some random. Some people try to minimize her, but she's arguably one of the biggest podcasters in the world. But with all this, the big thing to note is that Candace has been speculating and spreading these conspiracy theories for months. And while there hasn't been much reaction from the organization itself until recently, yesterday at an interview with Fox News, you had Erika Kirk finally responding, at least vaguely.
I do not have time to address the noise. My silence does not mean that I am complacent. Come after me, call me names, I don't care. Call me what you want, go down that rabbit hole, whatever. When you go after the people that I love, and you're making hundreds and thousands of dollars every single episode, going after the people that I love because somehow they're in on this, no, this is not okay. It's not healthy. This is a mind virus. This is a duty to my husband, and it's an absolute honor, and I will never back down. And so my message to them is to stop. To stop.
And she echoed that sentiment in an interview with CBS, except this time directly referencing Candace herself.
The podcaster Candace Owens, okay? At one time, a friend of Charlie's, at one time, an employee of Turning Point. She has been one of the main peddlers of these conspiracies. What do you want to say to her and the other people that are putting these lies out into the world right now?
Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say. Stop.
And so as you might expect, Candace appeared to take all of this very personally, and in her latest video, she absolutely slammed Erika's response as overly emotional.
Whoa! Whoa, Erika Kirk shuts down the No, she didn't even respond to one of the conspiracies. She gave us emotion. She gave us emotion. She said, I'm a mother, I am a wife, and we never asked about whether she was mother or wife. We want to know if she is a CEO and a chairman. And a CEO and a chairman has to compartmentalize. A CEO, okay, does not get to respond and say, that's my family. If you really care about your team, answer the questions, okay? Just demystify the entire event. Answer, come out, sit down, answer the questions so people don't think Turning Point USA looks so suspicious. Don't try to mom the organization and say, well, mother's upset because people are coming after her kids and all of this multi-million-dollar subsidiaries. That's my children.
Right, you had Candace pushing back hard on the idea that Erika doesn't have time for the noise, highlighting every stop on her recent press tour, as well as her appearance at the swearing-in ceremony for the new ambassador to India.
Erika Kirk has time. She has time. It is just what she means to say, not her priority, which is you are allowed to prioritize things in your own life. But this is not a matter of time constraint. It is not her priority to respond to the majority. Actually, the majority of people think of this as BS. The majority of people think Turning Point is acting suspicious.
Candace also addressed Erika's accusations of people that are making money from spreading these conspiracy theories online.
So since Charlie has died, that organization has taken in $140 million. But gosh darn you people that are making hundreds of dollars every day on YouTube talking about Charlie Kirk's assassination and the BS narrative that is being fed and the very obvious psychological operation that is being employed to make you accept the BS that they are trying to sell to us. Gosh darn you. Did you make $1,000 today? Speaking about Charlie Kirk, Well, you should be ashamed of yourself, says Turning Point USA.
And Candace later added to that argument in a tweet saying, "It is a positively absurd notion that you cannot critique a $150 million organization because the CEO says they are like a family and are grieving," and saying it is the exact same emotional strategy deployed by Black Lives Matter in the wake of George Floyd's death. When I called out their shady financial dealings, I rejected it then and I wholly reject it now. And then in addition to responding to Erika, you had Candace addressing Tucker Carlson, who's recently started asking his own questions about Charlie's assassination and expressing some doubt about the official story.
The FBI has this case, and of course the state of Utah. It's their job to not only find out what happened, but present it to the public in a way that restores some confidence that you can have justice in this country, that we have functioning law enforcement. I don't have confidence in that because there's a lot of evidence that we don't have that. So restore confidence by being honest and telling a story that makes sense. So why, and if they don't do that, and they haven't done that, they have not done that, how can you be mad at Candace Owens or anyone else for filling a vacuum that they left?
And then Tucker, he later reiterated his distrust of the official story as well as the FBI in his own video that he posted on X.
Of course, we shouldn't invent theories to discredit the FBI, but it's not enough to have government officials tell us, well, this is the truth. We have a right, probably an obligation to say, well, can you prove it? And if you can't, I don't have to believe you. It is the job of the FBI to find out what happened and to tell the rest of us, not hide behind, well, it's national security, confidential sources. No, tell us what happened. Show us what happened. Convince us what happened. That's your job.
Also, it's definitely worth noting that the situation, it just continues stoking the flames between Candace Owens and Tim Pool. Right, both right-wing creators have been consistently trading shots on X as well as on their respective shows, each accusing the other of being mentally unwell. And then, while all this has been happening, there's the matter of the TPUSA live stream that Blake Neff, the producer of the Charlie Kirk show, sort of invited Candace onto, but only on the condition that she make an in-person appearance. Right in there, you had Candace saying she hadn't received any official communication and that she couldn't make the date that they picked, December 15th, work in person. But still saying, she would be more than happy to appear virtually. But to that, you had Blake Neff responding, saying, "Yesterday, we made it clear that we would be scheduling a formal response to the allegations and accusations you have made. We've decided that response will be delivered during a live stream on December 15th. Thank you for your response, letting us know you will not be joining the in-person conversation. We will be proceeding without you." And Neff also responded to another user accusing him of mishandling this whole thing by saying, "Of course, it isn't how you book a guest. We are not booking a guest and never said we were. We are delivering a response to several months of escalating harassment and lies." She was given the opportunity to join and declined. But there you had Candace hitting back, saying that at no point did they say that her presence in person was mandatory. And then you have her quoting the initial statement from Blake Neff, saying that TPUSA would sincerely welcome her participation in that live stream, before then adding, "There was nothing sincere about what you did following that announcement, and you deserve the ratio you're getting. Frankly, nothing has felt sincere about the organization since Charlie passed." Right, and with all this, you even had someone calling into the Charlie Kirk show asking why they've been so difficult about this.
One thing that I'm just trying to make come together in my head is why the invitation was extended to Candace, but not to Candace directly.
What was approved is we announced we are going to respond to this. And what I said was we are going to announce a date soon. We actually hadn't agreed on it at the time I read the statement. We're going to announce a date where we're going to respond to this. And once we announce it, Candace is free to attend in person. That is what we announced. And so once we agreed on a time, I announced what the time was going to be. Candace, for her part, had said, you name the time, you name the place. That is what we did. Lastly, on the point of why it's in person, I think it's pretty intuitive that given what is being said, what the way this has worked is that it's critical to be in person if you want to be authentic and to be detailed. And that is what we think is a fair request to make if she's going to participate. But regardless, it is going to go forward because we have agreed that some response needs to be made.
Now, with all this, I do want to note, I don't have a dog in this fight. I am just watching them fight it out. But it does feel notable that Blake Neff is making the argument that you need to be in person to be authentic and detailed, but his co-host is appearing virtually. So, just going to throw that little bit into the conversation. But anyway, as far as the short term, it looks like it's probably not going to happen, the TPUSA Candace Owens live stream. But we should also expect fireworks because obviously she's either going to do a live stream while it's happening or do something to respond. And then that is going to just kind of continue this cycle that we've been seeing of just right-wingers going after one another. And so with that, one of the long-term questions is, will they eventually get back together? Or will there just be a winner, right? Is everyone kind of just going after audience right now? Especially because as time goes on, it is feeling more and more apparent that Charlie Kirk seemed to be a calming force for the right, like kind of a manager of sorts. Right? You looked at certain things like Trump was saying, right-wingers need to stop talking about the Epstein files. And Charlie Kirk seemed more than happy to follow suit. And then once people saw that, there were a number of right-wingers that followed Charlie. And while that was definitely not universally the case, it was something that was meaningful enough to have an impact. But, for now, the fight for the hill or the throne, it continues, and we'll have to see what this means about the future of politics and the future of the Republican Party. And then there's more we've got to talk about in just a minute. But first, let me say, my knee, it made sounds yesterday that I'm pretty sure was Morse code for call a doctor. And if that sounds familiar, you can also insert your own glitchy body part here. The point stands, right? Aging, it means every weird ache, it suddenly matters. And thankfully, today's sponsor, Zocdoc, they make finding the right doctor simple. It's quick and way less painful than ignoring it. Because Zocdoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. Urgent care, primary care, dermatology, dentist. If your body has a problem, they've got someone on Zocdoc who's got you. And you can see real patient reviews, not vague ones like nice office, actual humans telling you if the doctor's amazing or if you should absolutely run the other direction. And I say this as someone that actually uses Zocdoc. But I can book an appointment during lunch faster than I can decide what to eat. Zero phone calls, zero music, zero next available appointment is in 7 months. Just filters, availability, and boom, done. And understand, you can book same day and next day visits, which is great when your body decides we hurt now. And the whole thing, it's free to use. There's no hidden fees, no subscriptions, no create an account. So, stop putting off those doctor's appointments. Just scan that QR code or go to Zocdoc.com/Phil to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Phil, Zocdoc.com/Phil. But then next up today, we've got to talk about how Trump, he's calling affordability a hoax, which, by the way, is also what he called the Epstein files. But he's doing that as people have been increasingly turning to GoFundMe to just pay for their basic needs. Right? You may not know this, but GoFundMe actually does a year in help, which another way to think of it is like Spotify Wrapped, but for donations on the platform. And while it's meant to kind of uplift you about all the millions of donations that helped worthy causes, right? Highlight all the people that stepped up during natural disasters and other times of need. It's also kind of, I think the technical term is a fucking bummer to see how many people needed help at all. Or because essential expense fundraising for things like rent and utilities, it went up 20% this year. And when you look at the fastest growing categories this year, it was charity followed by just monthly bills. And again, while you've got Trump out there saying, hey, affordability is a hoax, everyone's doing great, more fundraisers were started for food banks than any other community related cause. And while yes, it is obviously a good thing that there are people out there that are willing to help, that they are helping, it points to the fact that a ton of people are just struggling to make ends meet. Right? GoFundMe shouldn't be the standard social safety net. But between the end of October and the start of November, there was a 6x increase in food-related fundraisers on the site, and that obviously lines up with the government shutdown pausing SNAP and government employees missing paychecks. And also with this, I'll say, well, Donald Trump is obviously getting the spotlight here because he's talking about affordability being a hoax, and he is the president of the United States who really talked about trying to help people afford things and pay for things. I do want to note it's not exclusively a Trump thing. Essential need fundraisers, they've been increasing over the last 3 years on GoFundMe in all the country's major English-speaking markets. But also, yes, we can't let this administration off the hook. Affordability is a major issue right now. And in fact, a recent Politico poll found that just nearly half of all Americans find that groceries, utilities, healthcare, housing, and transportation are difficult to afford. And roughly a quarter of Americans skipped either a medical checkup or prescription dose in the last 2 years because of costs. And this is touching so many different facets of life. I mean, childcare costs are up 30% since 2020. And the list of things being impacted, it just goes on and on. Yet we have a president who yesterday, we talked about it, said that the whole affordability thing is a Democratic hoax.
But they have a new word. They always have a hoax. The new word is affordability.
Right, which, that would be an ignorant, stupid statement on its own, but it is extra ignorant and extra stupid because that is literally how we kicked off a whole tour about affordability. And then, connecting this back to the GoFundMe news, the most used words in fundraiser descriptions, it included work, home, bill, and food. So, that gives you a sense that affordability is in fact a very real issue. And with that, you had GoFundMe CEO even telling the AP that people needing to ask for help on rent and other bills, that's a function of what's going on in these economies. And what is interesting is that people do step up and support folks in those situations. And there, it speaks to not only are there people that want to try and help, but also because there is no hope or trust that anything's going to come from the government. With this, and obviously this part is now my opinion, this is not how a fucking government or society should operate. If times are hard or tragedy strikes, you shouldn't have to hope that Mr. Beast is gonna, put you in a fucking game so you can put a roof over your head or put some food in your mouth. And while over the years I've gone after Democrats and Republicans for not doing enough to address these issues, it feels like we are at a time where we have an administration that is almost purposefully trying to exacerbate these problems. And I'm often just left wondering, I don't know if some of the people that are supporting him that are being negatively impacted have like a humiliation or a submission kink, but what is it going to take? You've got so many of these grifters saying, hey, everyone's doing great. Look at the stock market, which if you actually look into, at least for the United States, is a big bet on AI. Outside of AI, like there's been very little growth. The idea that that's an indicator that most Americans are doing well is crazy. That's great for people like me that have income, I can move around and stuff like that, but not the average everyday person that has nothing or a few $100s in their bank account. But anyway, I'll leave my ranting for my crashing out podcast. And for here and now, I'll say, what are your thoughts, opinions, and reactions to what we're seeing around affordability and what the president is or is not doing about it right now? But then moving on to some quick international news, the US Navy are just a bunch of pirates. Right, that is what the Venezuelan government, as well as a lot of people online, are saying right now after US ships seized an oil tanker off the Venezuelan coast. And the US government, they're not being shy about it, with the Department of Defense quickly releasing footage of the incident showing a helicopter landing troops onto the tanker to take it over. And actually, right before that was made public, you had Trump delivering the news himself.
We've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually.
But really, that was all we knew because they didn't give a real reason as to why this tanker was seized. They just said it was seized for a very good reason. And while, as I was recording this for you, the administration came out to try to give out more information, saying this tanker was targeted for transporting oil between Venezuela and Iran, either way, the initial lack of transparency, it led to a lot of questions and demands for answers. And among those questions was, what exactly is going to be done with the oil, to which Trump said that the US will probably just keep it. And then as far as, well, what's the international reaction going to be? You had Cuba and Iran calling it piracy, and, Russian officials, they used the incident to reiterate their support for Venezuela and said, I really hope that the United States, although they consider themselves entitled to conduct such operations, will somehow explain, out of respect for other members of the world community, which facts led them to take such actions. Which, really quick, I'm not gonna defend Trump's government here, but for Russia to still be mid-prolonged invasion of Ukraine going like, hey, seems really uncool and unwarranted, is insane. It's like if Diddy released a statement being anti-freak-off and anti-assault, right? And all of this, it's happening as you had people pointing out that just a month ago, Iran did a similar operation and the US denounced that, saying Iran's use of military forces to conduct an armed boarding and seizure of a commercial vessel in international waters constitutes a blatant violation of international law, undermining freedom of navigation and the free flow of commerce, and saying we call on Iran to articulate to the international community the legal basis for its actions, which obviously made a lot of people feel like Trump was being a bit hypocritical here, since he was willing to recognize the US's authority to enforce its own laws, but not Iran's to enforce theirs. But also, seeing Trump do this, it's not the most surprising thing, because, we even just recently heard Trump refusing to rule out a ground invasion of Venezuela. Also with this, as far as the oil itself and trade itself, you have many saying this sends a chilling message to companies looking to export crude Venezuelan oil, especially because this Trump administration just said this afternoon that it was willing to seize even more tankers if they were allegedly involved in breaking sanctions. We're saying it also might have a small ripple for US oil. And that is because despite tensions, Venezuela is a founding member of OPEC and sends us 132,000 barrels of oil a day, which may change because of all this. But for now, we'll have to wait to see what further fallout there is and if there's continued escalation. But then, next up today, we gotta talk about Ice Barbie Kristi Noem. Because for the first time since she was confirmed as the head of Homeland Security, she had to stand in front of Congress today for just a beating. Going into this, it initially looked like she might be on shaky ground, not because of the opposition from Democrats, but because her own boss. Right, recently it's been reported that Donald Trump's been considering replacing Noem with someone else as early as January. One official even saying that she was on very thin ice, saying that Stephen Miller was leading the charge and that he and others were just frustrated with her because she wasn't building new detention centers fast enough. And then you pair that with reportedly several governors calling Trump to voice complaints about Noem's handling of FEMA and disaster relief funds. But then yesterday you had Trump himself dispelling those rumors.
I read a story recently, I'm unhappy with Kristi. I'm so happy with it. We have a closed border. We have a border that's the best border in the history of our country. Why would I be unhappy? She's fantastic, actually.
And so when Noem went into the House committee today, she had the president's endorsement, but that also didn't stop protesters from bursting in.
I'm very privileged and honored today to have my family with me. I'd like to introduce them to you.
Anti-border
And in case you're wondering, they are yelling, "The power of Christ compels you," because they think she's the devil. But anyway, once she actually started getting questioned by lawmakers, the Democrats weren't much friendlier than the protesters.
You have misused resources appropriated by Congress. You've engaged in unethical behavior. You have repeatedly made false and misleading statements to Congress and to the press, and you've undermined the separation of powers and disregarded the role of Congress and the courts. Your options are limited. Either you're going to resign, Trump's going to fire you, or you will be impeached.
And with that, Delia Ramirez, who you just heard, is now pressing the House Judiciary Committee to begin impeachment hearings into Noem. Right? So you have that as Democrats have also filed articles of impeachment against Health Secretary RFK Jr. and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in the past week as well. But as for Noem specifically, the alleged unethical conduct, it stems from reports that her DHS awarded grant money to a firm that she has ties with, as well as the Coast Guard spending $172 million to buy 2 private jets for her. Not to mention, she allegedly lied to Congress and ignored the courts. And then, just a lot going on, Congressman Daniel Goldman pressed her on yet another alleged illegal matter.
Immigrants with ongoing asylum applications are legally in this country.
It's a lawful platform.
Okay, so if your department then deports anyone with an ongoing asylum application, you are violating the law, correct?
Joe Biden left us with.
I'm not asking about Joe Biden. I'm asking you a specific question.
I'm
asking you.
Asylum applications.
Why are you filibustering? Why can't you answer the question? It's a simple question.
Your president,
if your department deports anyone with an ongoing asylum application, you are not following the law. Don't tell us to change the law. If you don't like the asylum system, you changed the asylum law.
Well, with this, unfortunately, the grilling got cut short because Noem left the hearing early. Her department, they're in some hot water outside of the House chamber as well. Because in case after case, federal judges have been chastising ICE agents for abusing their power. So, I mean, for example, in Oregon, there's a law that used to ban creating a loud or unusual noise, noxious odor, or other nuisance on federal property. But that was recently broadened to include areas outside federal property that affects, threatens, or endangers federal property or persons on federal property. And so as a result, federal agents have arrested or threatened to arrest protesters on a sidewalk outside an ICE detention facility who were using a megaphone. And that then led to a lawsuit, and now a judge has temporarily barred the White House from enforcing that law outside of the facility while the case proceeds. And understand, that's not the first alleged First Amendment violation committed by federal authorities. But there's also a situation with a guy who was arrested after playing the Star Wars Imperial March theme at National Guard members in DC, which, excuse my language, what a little bitch you have to be to arrest that guy. Oh, did the song hurt your feelings? Meanwhile, as the holidays approach, you've seen some churches altering their traditional nativity scenes to make a similar statement. And so, for example, there's one in Boston that removed Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus, and in their place, there was a sign reading, "ICE was here." Right? And that was something that ICE Director Todd Lyons clutched pearls about and called absolutely abhorrent, saying that it adds to a dangerous narrative responsible for a more than 1,150% increase in assaults on ICE officers. But a big counterpoint you've seen there is many have said what's really driving anti-ICE narratives are the actions of ICE itself. With that in mind, there's a particular example that's been grabbing a lot of attention right now because it's just so shocking. Or with that being the case of this young man, a U.S. citizen who city leaders in Minneapolis say was arrested by ICE for no other reason than he looked Somali.
I was even outside for mere seconds before I seen a masked person running at me full speed. He tackled me, pushed me inside the restaurant, like as you can see in the video. I told him I'm a U.S. citizen, what is going on? He didn't seem to care. He dragged me outside through the snow while I was handcuffed, restrained, helpless, and he pushed me to the ground, and he put me in a chokehold.
Or with him saying that he offered to show them his digital passport on his phone, but they declined, and so he offered to provide his name and date of birth, but they declined again. And then with that, adding that after about an hour, they put him in the car and they drove off.
So after I arrived at the facility, they parked up, the gate was closed, and they made me step outside in the snow while it was snowing, and they said we have to scan your face or we're not gonna let you inside the car. So I had no choice. I let them scan my face. I was so cold. I guess the face thing, it didn't work.
With him then, after that, saying that they brought him inside the facility and kept him there for another 20 or 30 minutes, telling him there was no medical aid available, even though his hands were numb and his back hurt. And then eventually, someone looked at his passport, took his fingerprints, and let him go. But
I asked them, can you take me back to where you picked me up from? They said, no, you have to walk in the snow.
Though luckily, he said eventually his parents were able to pick him up, but he stressed that, this whole thing, it was outrageous, not just because he's a citizen, but because if they'll do this to him, imagine what they're doing to people with even fewer rights. And in fact, he even had the Minneapolis police chief saying this to him at a press conference.
I apologize that this happened to you in my city with people wearing vests that say police. That's embarrassing.
But that, my friends, brings us to the end of today's show, but you've got even more just a click away. Or you can think of it as a part 2. I've got my brand new podcast, Crashing Out, that just went up recently. It's like the exact opposite of the Philip DeFranco show, and this is, 95% news, 5% opinion. That's the flip of that. It's a very cathartic watch and listen. Or if you want just more news, maybe you missed last night's Philip DeFranco show, I got it covered right here. There's even links in the description to make everything easy, because I'm just, such a giver. Wow, I love Phil. But hey, let me say thank you for watching. I love yo faces, and I'll see you right back here next time.